The crystal lobby shivered when the blonde receptionist spat, "We don't serve your kind, get out before security drags you." Every eye pivoted toward the lone woman in a navy suit luggage, scuffed by airports, dignity untouched. They had no idea Dr. Maya Carter owns the entire five-star empire they're standing in. As the guard's boots thudded closer, Maya's pulse slowed, not quickened. She slipped out a steel-black phone, dialed one number, and spoke 7 words. "Oliver board meeting here in 60 minutes. In that instant, the balance of power detonated. Careers would crumble, fortunes would pivot, and the word justice would earn compound interest. Want to see prejudice demolished by the very target it abused. Stay, because the next half hour is an execution done with a smile. Outraged by blatant prejudice, smash that subscribe button, hit like, and type justice in the comments, then tell us where you're watching from. In the next 30 minutes, you'll witness a billion-dollar CEO turn one humiliating insult into a career-ending earthquake for every bigot in this hotel. Don't blink, because every click you give fuels the hammer coming down. At 11:47 p.m. Pacific Time, the final flight from Boston exhaled its passengers into the humid glow of LAX, and Dr. Maya Carter, 42, rolled her carry-on toward the hired town car without fanfare. To every casual observer, she looked like another exhausted business traveler. Creased navy suit, sensible heels, hair pinned tight to survive turbulence. But her resume could suffocate an encyclopedia. Orphan at 10, valedictorian at 16, Harvard PhD by 24, she dismantled luxury hotel gatekeeping by engineering algorithms that predicted unbooked suites, flipping empty rooms into profit. Those patents became Carter Sterling Resorts, 15 properties on 3 continents, quarterly revenue north of $1 billion. None of that wealth, however, had sanded down the scar on her memory, the 4th-grade class trip when a docent handed every child a sticker except the girl from the projects. Tonight, inside the Orion Regency Los Angeles, her crown jewel preparing for a celebrity-packed grand opening, she would discover the sticker had merely grown sharper teeth. The drive from the airport to Beverly Crest took 21 minutes, just long enough for Maya to skim the day's operational dashboard. On her phone occupancy, 68%, champagne inventory, on target, no red flag guest complaints. The data calmed her, but not completely. She believed in touch, and strolling lobbies, unannounced, listening for the heartbeat numbers could not capture. With the launch party 48 hours away, she chose a covert audit book under a pseudonym, Sleep-Wake Brief Staff in the Morning. Anonymous spot checks kept executives honest. The car swung beneath the porte-cochere. Moonlight flashed across a 6-story Art Deco facade she herself had approved, yet the building felt suddenly foreign, as though it had been waiting to prove something unpleasant. Maya tipped the driver, inhaled, and crossed the threshold. The lobby ceiling soared all brass ribs and frosted glass, but the grandeur failed to soften the first note of tension. Behind the desk, senior concierge Karen Whitaker lifted her head, clocked Maya's brown skin, then dropped it with mechanical indifference. Beside her, junior clerk, Lucas Park, smirked into a glowing phone screen, thumbs drumming as if texting a joke too juicy to keep. Neither greeted the arriving guest. Instead, they resumed hushed conversation, eyes flicking toward Maya like inspectors assessing a counterfeit bag. Maya parked her suitcase, pulled out the alias reservation on her tablet, and waited the professional 3 seconds that usually summons hospitality smiles. Nothing. 10 seconds. Still nothing. The old childhood burn prickled behind her sternum. She cleared her throat gently. No aggression, just signal. Karen's response, a bored yes that floated upward, almost amused. Maya's trained ear caught the unspoken subtitle, "Explain why you're standing there." Before she could speak, a new player entered, Denise Alvarez, night shift supervisor heels, striking tile with the staccato confidence of a minor dictator. Denise eyed Maya's luggage, no luxury logos, and raised one sculpted eyebrow. Lucas leaned over. Stage whispered a phrase Maya barely caught, corporate card probably stolen, and all 3 shared a thin-lipped grin. A familiar heaviness settled in Maya's chest. She knew that grin had faced variations of it in boardrooms where she was the only woman of color seated. Each time she buried the sting under numbers and logic. Tonight, The grin landed on sacred ground. For one sliver of a second she considered revealing herself, display the executive badge, and the charade go upstairs. But the docent's missing sticker returned to mind, and she decided the lesson would be bigger if they taught it to themselves first. She smiled politely, extended the alias ID, and requested a deluxe king. Karen delivered her line with rehearsed pity. "I'm afraid we're fully booked." The lobby, echoing at 32% capacity, contradicted her. Maya's gaze swept open sofas, dozing bellstaff, idle bar stools. She looked back, met Karen's eyes, and asked softly, factually, whether any cancellations had appeared. Denise snorted a sound half-laugh, half-dismissal. Lucas murmured, "Try Motel Central, 10 miles south," like he was offering life advice to the clueless. Maya felt her throat tighten, not from shock, but from the weary recognition that prejudice never sleeps. She inhaled, counted 3 beats, and reached for her platinum Amex. Denise waved it off as though the metal might stain her manicure. "We don't swipe cards we can't verify," she said. Translation: "You look wrong, therefore your money is dirty." Behind Maya, the security guard, Hank Miller, watched, arms folded, deciding whether to flex. The sting sharpened into cold resolve. Data had made her rich. Dignity would make her lethal. In 45 minutes, the Orion Regency would witness a spectacle it would quote for decades. First, however, she needed fresh air and a phone signal strong enough to summon an earthquake. She thanked the staff for their effort, pivoted, and headed toward the glass doors, every step measured, spine unbowed. Outside, the night smelled of jacaranda and pending justice. Karen Whitaker slid Maya's platinum card across the marble counter as if it were contaminated, the metal scraping ice cold against stone. Verification failed, she announced, though no terminal had touched the chip. Maya's brows lifted a millimeter, an equation already forming behind her calm gaze, but Karen doubled down, voice loud enough to carry corporate frauds on the rise. Company policy. A soft chime overhead signaled an elevator arriving, and with it, Lucas Park's stage whisper, "Whole suitcase probably costs less than tonight's valet." He didn't need volume. Disdain carries. The joke landed with Denise Alvarez, who covered her smirk by smoothing lipstick, then leaned over the desk as if confiding a secret to a child. "Miss Carter, is it? Orion Regency is 5-star Beverly Crest. We curate the guest mix. You understand?" Maya understood perfectly. Curate was the velvet word bigotry used when it wore pearls. Still, she tried procedure once more. She opened the reservation on her tablet, the alias clearly confirmed, and angled the screen toward them. Karen never looked down. Instead, she performed a slow appraisal: brown skin, travel wrinkled suit, no visible designer logos, large enough to shout, "Price." Judgment complete, she returned the device with fingertips that barely touched it. "Try maybe Tuesday," she advised, measuring each syllable as though explaining algebra to someone hopelessly remedial. "There's a hostel downtown more in your range." The word "your" sliced deeper than any profanity. It carried the weight of every locked door Maya had pried open her entire life. She inhaled through the nose, letting air cool the furnace lining her ribs, then spoke with clinical precision. "Hostel availability is a fascinating guess, Karen, but I'll settle my account here. Please process the card." Lucas snapped a photo of the card with his phone, pretending to zoom in on the engraving, but the camera lens lingered on Maya's face. Evidence, he mouthed to Denise. "Credit card fraud." Denise squealed at the private joke and copied the image to her screen. Digital suspicion now had pixels. The lobby pianist faltered on a note, sensing static that sheet music could not resolve. Across the room, 2 bellmen exchanged glances, trouble brewing, paychecks at stake, best remain furniture. Hank Miller. The night security chief rolled one shoulder, the seam of his jacket groaning. A former semi-pro linebacker turned rent-a-badge, Hank enjoyed problems that could be solved by size. He strolled over, boots kissing tile, and planted himself 8 inches behind Maya's left shoulder, close enough that she smelled spearmint and gun oil cologne. "Any issues here?" His tone implied he craved one. "None," Karen answered, for her eyes glittering. "Guest is leaving." Then to Maya, in case subtlety had failed. "Now." Silence thickened. You could hear the lobby's Art Deco clock tick. Maya's pulse didn't race. It telescoped into deliberate beats, the metronome she used when negotiating acquisitions. She lifted her suitcase handle, not in surrender, but to give herself room to pivot. "I'll need the name of your general manager," she said, voice even as elevator rails. "Immediately." Karen feigned a sympathetic sigh. "Sweetheart, requests go through me. I'm senior here." She tapped the brass name badge as proof. The knockoff diamond on her finger flashed beneath recessed lighting, a cheap star announcing planets she didn't own. Denise chimed in, impatient. "Look, it's almost midnight. We have real VIP check-ins pending Grammys producers streaming money. If you keep stalling, I'll have to call the actual police," Lucas offered. "They love stolen cards." Hank perked at that knuckles-flexing fantasy, sketched him frog-marching a brown woman past the revolving doors, patrons applauding, civility restored. He stepped closer, shoulder-angled like a battering ram. "Ma'am, last chance." Maya's head tilted back just enough to meet his gaze. No flinch, no tremor. "Sir, the threat half convinces me your establishment fears its own cameras." It was then perfectly timed, almost cinematic, that Charles Denton emerged from the hallway leading to the executive offices. Tall silver hair lacquered into immobility, Denton wore a midnight suit worth 2 mortgage payments lapel, bursting with a miniature sapphire pin, his self-awarded medal for excellence. He scanned the tableau, spotted a guest of color ringed by his loyal gatekeepers, and drew conclusions in a breath. What appears to be the disturbance, his diction belonged to a stage actor, mid-matinee, every vowel polished. Karen straightened, relief pooling in her shoulders. Attempted walk-in claims reservation. Cards, questionable. Uh-huh. Denton drifted forward, hands clasped behind his back, adopting the posture of a museum curator approaching suspicious art. He exaggerated a courteous smile. "Madam, the Orion maintains certain revenue thresholds. Rooms begin at $450 per night. Surely you're aware." Maya answered with numbers, always numbers. "My corporation billed this property $2.8 million last quarter, Mr. Denton." "I'm more than aware." Lucas snorted. Karen bit a lip to hide laughter. Denise rolled eyes so hard the whites flashed like camera strobes. Denton, convinced he faced delusion, leaned in just enough to whisper, but ensured anyone within 10 feet could hear. "Even fantasies require credit, and your plastic hasn't passed authentication." He tapped the Amex with a manicured nail for punctuation. The humiliation should have burned. Instead, it crystallized. Behind Maya's calm expression, raw calculus took shape: brand damage, legal exposure, market response. 4 employees. 5. They weren't simply rude, they were liabilities, ticking like microwaves no one had cleaned. She exhaled slowly. "Mr. Denton, are you refusing accommodation based on objective criteria or subjective impression?" Denton feigned confusion, as though the distinction were advanced calculus. "We reserve the right to refuse service, subjective impressions included. It is, after all, our atmosphere." He gestured to the chandelier vaulting above them, implying her skin tone dulled the shine. Karen added the final acid drop. "Bus station is 6 blocks directly downhill. Less expensive, less sophisticated." The pause before sophisticated spat centuries of hierarchy. Lucas retrieved a luggage tag from beneath the counter, dangled it toward Maya. The tag read, "Coach." He laughed, offered it like a party favor. Hank's radio crackled. Static hissed the moment's soundtrack. He adjusted his stance feet apart, weight forward, awaiting the nod to escort and discard. Maya regarded them one by one, imprinting their faces the way astronomers catalog failing stars. Then she slid the Amex into her wallet, zipped the pocket, and spoke with the softness engineers use before demolishing a bridge. "Thank you for clarifying your policy." She turned, suitcase gliding behind steps, measured yet unhurried. The automatic doors sighed open, releasing her into night air perfumed with magnolia and exhaust. Karen exhaled a victorious giggle. Lucas offered Denise a high five. She returned with lacquered fingernails. Hank relaxed his shoulders, slightly disappointed. Denton pulled a silk pocket square, buffed an imaginary speck off marble, and congratulated his staff on protecting the brand. Inside the staff-only back corridor, Denton dialed his district director, believing due diligence required a preemptive version of events. Minor disturbance, he began. A woman attempted to scam a reservation. He spiced the recounting with buzzwords: security risk counterfeit card, suspicious behavior language designed to immunize him against questions. As he spoke, the elevator chimed again. 3 bellmen watched half a dozen strangers enter the lobby, men and women in tailored suits, clipboards, underarms, expressions colder than the marble. Karen noticed first straightening as though expecting applause. Denise's smile froze when she recognized none of the arriving faces. One stranger flashed an ID Carter Sterling Board of Directors. Another tapped on a tablet, flipping through staff rosters as if searching for headshots. Lucas's phone slipped from his hand and clattered on granite. The sound drew every eye. "Who authorized this tour?" Denise whispered, throat suddenly dry. No one answered because authority had shifted universes while they gloated. The strangers spoke quietly among themselves, then formed a silent phalanx near the desk, waiting as though a curtain were about to rise. Karen's confidence evaporated molecule by molecule. Sweat bloomed beneath her blouse despite lobby air conditioning. Hank sauntered over, bouncing on heels, but the tallest board member fixed him with a stare that felt like fingerprints on his badge. He retreated. Denton re-entered, still on the phone. "Yes, sir, handled professionally," he assured. Then he saw the assemblage recognized Oliver Grant, corporate chairman, media-shy billionaire, and dropped the call before it ended. Terror rearranged his bone structure. Karen tried a greeting. It died mid-syllable. Oliver ignored her eyes, sweeping the staff like audit lasers. The pianist sensed seismic shift, morphed the lullaby into dissonant chords before abandoning keys entirely. And then, precisely 17 minutes after being denied a room, Maya Carter walked back through the doors she had exited. This time her steps were unburdened by luggage, her phone still glowing call history, a list of names executives fear. She stopped beside Oliver, said nothing. She didn't need to. Her presence was declaration indictment verdict. 20 feet away, Karen felt her knees soften. Denise covered her mouth. Lucas's complexion turned the shade of printer paper. Hank instinctively positioned himself behind a column as though cabinets of marble could grant asylum. Denton forced a smile so wide it strained muscle. Madam, there appears to have been a misunderstanding. Let's ensure you." Oliver lifted a single hand, ceasing speech as effectively as severing power. "Charles," he said, voice devoid of warmth, "why is our CEO standing without keys in her own lobby?" The lobby clock ticked again. 2 beats, maybe 3. Each second sounded like a coffin lid sliding home. Every viewer at home, every listener of this story, now shares the privilege of seeing an empire's supremacy implode in real time. But the reckoning is still loading, still sharpening its blade, and the next swing will change lives permanently. Stay tuned, because when justice lands, it doesn't knock, it detonates. Outside, the California night glimmered with promise for everyone except the 5 employees who had just volunteered to be examples. Under the porte-cochere, Maya Carter inhaled a lungful of jasmine-laced air and let the anger settle into her bones, like calcium indestructible, quietly strengthening. Rage is useless without geometry. She started drawing angles. First call, Oliver Grant. He answered on the second ring groove, worn by years of crisis management, yet never having heard Maya's voice vibrate this cold. "Boardroom or lobby?" he asked. "Lobby," she said. "I want them to feel every watt of hierarchy." She set the timer, 60 minutes. Anything longer breeds rumor. Anything shorter risks sloppy evidence. Second call, corporate counsel Janet Ruiz, a litigator who could cross-examine a glacier into melting. Civil rights violations, 5 staff, multiple witnesses, surveillance coverage, A to Z. Maya briefed. "I need cease and desist drafted plus termination releases airtight by the time you arrive." Janet needed 6 words, pulling statutes and grabbing the dash cam. Her sedan would break 3 speed limits between downtown and Beverly Crest. Third call, Avery, in Global HR Keeper of every performance review, every whisper of misconduct. Open clandestine folder, Project Nightfall. Maya instructed. The folder contained pre-approved disciplinary protocols for extreme guest abuse. Populate with Whitaker Park, Alvarez, Miller, Denton. Suspend their logins, freeze payroll, flag vacation payouts. I want termination packets stamped and watermarked within 40. Avery's keyboard clacked like a hailstorm. Digital pink slips loading, he confirmed. Fourth call, optional but delicious, went to the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force she had personally bankrolled. Case study in real time, she said. Front row seats if you can make it. 30 seconds later, a group chat buzzed alive with thumbs-up emojis and the phrase, teachable moment. Maya closed her phone, feeling an old mentor's mantra slide through her veins. Never yell at a rotten wall. Pull one brick and watch the facade buckle itself. Tonight, she would pull 5. She re-entered her car. The chauffeur had barely touched the ignition before she stopped him. Engine off. Optics matter. I'll walk back, audience needs to see the distance. The man nodded, eyes widening as he realized who his passenger truly was. While she strode toward the revolving doors, Oliver's cavalry materialized, 3 midnight black SUVs, gliding like stealth bombers. Taillights bled red across the driveway. From each vehicle stepped a director or vice president, suits darker than asphalt, expressions carved from quartz. None spoke. Their synchronized arrival said everything. Inside the fleet's lead vehicle, Janet finalized legal drafts, electronic signatures blinking ready. A board secretary reviewed them for typos. None dared find any. Back on the marble steps, Maya opened the Notes app and composed the speech she would deliver, not to embarrass, but to document. Each insult Karen had thrown, each slur cloaked in velvet, she typed verbatim. Precision strips racism of deniability. A text from Avery popped up, payroll locked access badges set to expire on your mark. Another from Security Ops, CCTV pulled backed up to offsite. Body cam from guard Hank activated, 23:59. Evidence seeds germinating in the dark. 43 minutes remained, so Maya pivoted to reconstruction, because revenge without rebuilding leaves a vacuum cynicism loves to occupy. She messaged Lena Nguyen, an assistant GM she had mentored in Singapore. Pack a weekend bag. Promotion opportunity. Begins tonight. Response came in a gif of a plane taking off. She rang James Washington, ex-civil rights attorney turned hospitality guru. Front desk overhaul. You free? James laughed. Been waiting for this call. 2 keystrokes later, his first-class ticket auto-populated. 33 minutes to go. Maya gazed into the starlit reflection on a floor-to-ceiling window, recalling the orphanage matron who once told her, "Know your price, child, so no one can sell you at a discount." Tonight she would teach that mathematics to people who thought discounting began at skin level. She stepped back through the lobby doors to scout terrain. The pianist was noodling a safe jazz standard. The music would soon serve as a requiem. Hank the guard tracked her silhouette like prey, but did not move, door policy still undecided about whether she was trouble or test. Perfect. She returned outside as Oliver's entourage advanced. Quick brief in low voices, evidence chain rolls, on-camera statements. Oliver would open, Maya would prosecute, Janet would close. The directors formed a silent arc, every smartphone recording to lock narration. 20 minutes left. Denton's frantic call to District HQ registered on the corporate dashboard. Avery forwarded the transcript to Maya. Denton labeled her a belligerent fraud suspect. She bookmarked the file. Libel often sweetens severance negotiations. 15 minutes. Janet completed a final pass on the termination letters. Adobe Acrobat chimed. Maya skimmed one cold, factual, incontestable, her favorite tone. Each packet referenced Title II of the Civil Rights Act Company, Code 7.3b, and Breach of Ethics Clause 14.6. Cause was crystal, severance 0. 10 minutes. She issued one last directive to marketing: prepare a midnight press release, touting swift corrective action, following an isolated incident and highlighting new diversity initiatives. Control the narrative before gossip mutates. 7 minutes. A thought surfaced, almost pity, but she quarantined it. Empathy is vital. Immunity to manipulation is survival. Racism had selected its own punishment by entering her hotel tonight. 3 minutes. She aligned herself at the lobby threshold board, behind her evidence stitched into digital skeletons. Inside, Karen laughed at something on Lucas's phone, a sound soon to fossilize. Exactly 60 minutes after she had been told to find a hostel, the automatic doors parted. Maya strode in first, Oliver one step right. Janet, one step left, directors fanning like chess pieces around a queen. The pianist stopped mid-arpeggio. Every conversation died mid-syllable. 5 futures balanced on a razor. Maya surveyed her employees, soon to be former, and felt no rage, only arithmetic. For every act of bias, a cost. For every cost, an invoice. Tonight, the ledger would be reconciled in full. Oliver Grant's voice cut the lobby like surgical steel. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a formal disciplinary proceeding. Security cameras are live body cams recording statements admissible in court. The sentence turned air to concrete. Every breath felt suddenly billable. Karen Whitaker's smile collapsed first. She tried to adjust her jacket, but her fingers trembled as though threaded with voltage. Maya Carter stepped forward, tablet in hand. Her tone was courtroom calm, but every syllable carried a hidden war drum. Item 1, denial of accommodation. A fingertip swipe projected the reservation onto the lobby's digital art wall, alias confirmed time-stamped room available. Item 2, fraudulent accusation. A second swipe triggered CCTV footage of Karen sliding the untouched credit card across the counter and announcing verification failed. The crowd saw, and more crucially heard, the contempt in Karen's voice. Murmurs rippled among off-duty bartenders and bellmen now gravitating to the spectacle. Lucas Park gasped, realizing the screens were synced to audio. He backed away, colliding with a luggage trolley, the clang echoing like a starter pistol. Maya zoomed the footage to expose Lucas photographing her card. Unlawful capture of customer data, she narrated. California Penal Code Section 502. Lucas muttered, I deleted it. Janet Ruiz, already holding the forensics report, replied, without looking up, cloud backup confirms otherwise. Denise Alvarez tried a different tactic, authority by volume. This is harassment. You can't publicly shame staff, Oliver answered with a single sheet of embossed stationery. Suspension notice effective immediately. As Denise reached for the paper, her employee badge pinged, deactivated the turnstile LEDs behind her, flipping from emerald to blood red. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Hank Miller sensed the tide turning lethal. He attempted subtle exit toward staff corridors, but 2 uniformed corporate security officers materialized, blocking his retreat. They were half his size, yet twice as official. One held a linen envelope bearing his name. The other carried a wheeled crate for badge returns. Hank's shoulders dropped, linebacker bulk suddenly juvenile. He accepted the envelope opened. It stared at the words, termination for cause civil rights violation, as though they were written in fire. When he looked up, Maya met his eyes. No gloat, just ledger balance. Charles Denton clung to bravado. Straightening his sapphire pin, he addressed Oliver. Procedural error, sir. Proper protocol requires private hearing. Oliver gestured to the board, 11 directors in monochrome suits. Private hearings are granted to employees who follow protocol. You failed at hello. Denton's jaw flexed. He turned to Maya, likely planning a conciliatory smile, but she was already unspooling the next indictment. Item 3, racial slur by implication. Quote, your kind. She tapped. Subtitles rolled under Karen's face from the camera feed. The slur replayed each repetition, a hammer blow. Karen whimpered, mascara cracking like dried paint. Maya let silence steep, then resumed. Item 4, intimidation. Footage displayed Hank advancing, cracking knuckles. A decibel graph appeared, highlighting the menacing pop. Gasps rose. A bartender whispered, he really did that, as though myth had become anatomy lesson. Janet Ruiz stepped beside Maya, holding 5 glossy folders. By corporate code, the accused may review evidence before signing acknowledgments. She handed each folder to its owner. Lucas flipped pages too fast, hoping to find a loophole. Karen's eyes darted like a trapped animal. Denise slammed her folder shut, then opened it again, disbelief rewiring itself. Hank barely turned a page. Reading felt moot when every word spelled exit. Denton didn't touch his. He stared at Maya as if she had rewritten gravity. In case anyone believes this is theatrical, Maya continued, here are the economic stakes. Another swipe and the wall displayed financials, annual revenue, projected growth, then a red line labeled lawsuit risk potential, $15 million in damages for one civil rights case. She faced the onlookers. Racism isn't just immoral, it's wildly unprofitable. Applause erupted from staff who had gathered at a polite distance. The sound startled Karen. She realized colleagues she'd sneered at were cheering her downfall. Denton attempted one final gambit legal threat. "Defamation will cost you, Dr. Carter." Janet produced a USB, held it like a court exhibit. Primary source audiovisual multiple angles. Truth is an absolute defense. Denton swallowed. His Adam's apple performed a visible freefall. Oliver signaled to corporate security. 2 officers escorted Karen and Lucas to the employee entrance. Their departure set off a chain reaction. Denise's heels clacked a defeated rhythm behind them. Hank followed, envelope clutched like a citation from fate. Each badge beeped red when scanned. Each door clicked shut with the finality of a vault. Only Denton remained. Maya faced him, voice lowered to something almost intimate. "You built a facade of silk and stone, Charles. Tonight it shatters because you forgot the foundation is human dignity." She extended his termination letter. He didn't reach for it. Instead, he glanced at the board, last appeal to old boys' solidarity. None met his eyes. He took the letter. Ink might as well have been acid. When security approached, he straightened his cuffs, but the gesture looked borrowed from someone who still mattered. As Denton was guided away, Maya addressed the remaining employees, the silent audience now leaning forward like children at a campfire. Orion Regency reopens in 48 hours under leadership that understands hospitality begins with humanity. Anyone unwilling to serve every guest with equal respect should collect payslips tonight. Doors close at 2 a.m. Heads nodded relief, blooming the toxin had been removed. She pivoted to the board. Phase 2 begins now, restoration. Instantly marketing blasted a push alert. Swift justice served. Carter Sterling doubles down on inclusive luxury. Social feeds lit up. Maya's phone pinged reporters requesting comment. She replied with one line, "Prejudice checked out. Excellence checked in." Janet approached, whispering press outside. Maya nodded, but first she walked to the grand piano. The silent pianist, uncertain, stood aside. Maya pressed a single middle C, its tone pure, unwarped by ego. She told him quietly, "Play something hopeful." He began a soft blues progression that drifted upward, scrubbing residue of hate from the high ceiling. Outside, flashbulbs erupted. A journalist asked if firing the entire night shift was extreme. Maya answered, extreme was telling a paying guest to find a bus station because of her skin. This, a swift documented correction, is ordinary governance. Get used to it. Cameras loved the line. Tweets multiplied. Back inside operations notified her that access control had reset guest accounts, reconciled replacement staff en route. The lobby's art wall faded from legal exhibits to a tranquil ocean scene. Aromatic diffusers switched from corporate vanilla to lavender calm. Symbolism executed down to the scent. Karen Lucas, Denise Hank, and Denton were led to the porte cochere. No police, no shouting, just the cold calculus of consequence. Denton tried one last glance back at the gold initials above the revolving door initials he once flaunted on brochures, but the chauffeur closed the SUV door, severing nostalgia. Maya watched their car merge into Beverly Crest traffic taillights, dwindling like an error message disappearing after a patch. She felt no triumphal roar, only a serene click, as if a puzzle piece had slotted at last. Oliver touched her elbow. "Ready for new management." She smiled. Already boarding flights. Her phone buzzed with Lena Nguyyen's boarding pass, James Washington's ETA, Patricia Owens's acceptance e-signature. The void was filling with people who understood welcome is not a luxury feature, but the product itself. As midnight struck, Maya addressed the remaining staff once more. "Remember tonight," she said. "Bigotry entered wearing a name badge. It exited wearing handcuffs of unemployment. Let's ensure it never books a room here again." Applause thundered, not polite but fervent, the sound of employees discovering the house rules had changed in their favor. Somewhere in the back, a dishwasher shouted justice, and others echoed until the marble tremored. Maya allowed herself a final deep breath. The same lobby that had tried to exile her now glowed under new math respect, multiplied ignorance, subtracted revenue, poised to compound. The climax was over, but the Renaissance had just begun.